So hopefully, in recording this episode today, there's a lovely lawyer out there who loves to dabble in class actions or lawsuits because every door we've gone to is like, yeah, thanks for letting us know, and does jack shit. So if you're out there, I'd love to talk to you.
Welcome to the Real Estate Replay. I'm Wendy Gilch, an industry outsider here to reveal the hidden practices and explain the processes that can impact your next home purchase or sale. Alongside other industry misfits, we'll call out these poor practices and equip home buyers and sellers with insights they need to protect themselves every step of the way.
Welcome back to the Real Estate Replay, the show where we call out the bad actors, literally and figuratively, in the housing, finance, and now I guess the advertising world. I'm Wendy Gilch, consumer advocate, founder of Selling Later, soon to be Housing Rebel, and the person who actually reads the terms and conditions, and lately someone who's spent way too much time following and screen recording some really, really stupid ads on TikTok. And in today's episode, unfortunately for you, again, it's just me, and it's going to be a little bit different because I'm not breaking down necessarily a shady product or calling out some free stuffed contract. I'm laying out a huge pattern that's a huge issue right now on social media. It's a full-blown system of deception that's hiding in plain sight, feeding on your trust, and doing it with a super big fake smile and probably some filters. So this episode for me is a little personal because I'm just really pissed off and fed up. Because I've spent the past 6 months tracking over 30 companies that are playing fast and loose with advertising rules. Fake testimonials, undisclosed paid actors, and even disclosures hidden behind layers of trickery. And no one seems to give a shit. So hopefully, in recording this episode today, there's a lovely lawyer out there who loves to dabble in class actions or lawsuits because every door we've gone to is like, yeah, thanks for letting us know, and does jack shit. So if you're out there, I'd love to talk to you. Here we go. So let's start at the very beginning. A very good place to start. You're scrolling on TikTok and you see a calm, confident woman telling you how she pulled out $120,000 of her home equity to redo her kitchen and pay off some bills. She doesn't have monthly payments. She doesn't have any interest. And she has like 10 years to pay it back and leaves out a crap ton of disclosures that go along with that. And then you scroll along and it happens to be a dad in a flannel shirt talking about he sold his home for cash and got way more money than he ever thought possible. These videos are like everyday people and they look like they're sharing helpful advice. And you assume, hey, that's a real person. He looks like my dad. I could trust him. That looks like my friend. I could probably trust her. And this was her actual experience because I don't see anything else stated otherwise. Maybe I'll check it out. Well, what you're really seeing is an actor paid to read a script and likely paid based on how many clicks they get from you watching and clicking on their ad. It might also be not even a real person, an AI. It's all basically companies buying your trust through emotional storytelling with zero transparency and realness. And that's just the start. These companies, some actually behemoth companies who know better, and other small scammy companies are now using these kind of ads for lead generators for all kinds of financial products, insurance, home equity agreements, car insurance, you name it. And they're all paying firms to craft these viral, feel-good ad content designed to disarm you. They skip the disclaimers or they bury them under the read more buttons or captions, or sometimes even make the freaking disclaimer so translucent you can hardly even see it. They never say it's an ad, and they rarely ever, if ever, disclose that the person that's telling you about their experience actually never had that experience, or they're being paid to pretend they did. And yes, that would be a violation of FTC rules. But guess what? The enforcement of those rules is practically non-existent. Now, I didn't set out to become the world's most annoyed watchdog, but unfortunately, when you watch one ad on the TikTok algorithm, you just keep getting more of them. So technically, like fortunately for me and unfortunately for the 30 plus companies that we now have screen recordings of ads that are incredibly misleading, fake testimonials, and zero disclaimers to tell you otherwise. So as the algorithm giveth, I record, and I started to notice a pattern. I'd see an ad for like a financial product or a real estate referral, and I'd click around because that's what I do. I want to figure out where the BS is hiding. And suddenly I find myself on a website that has zero company information, just a smiling face and a form asking for your personal information. So I started to save them, the screenshots, the videos, the scripts, even rewatching the ads in slow motion to make sure that I didn't miss some hidden disclosure. And guess what? Majority of the times, they were not there. And I started to build a giant list, folder after folder of screen recordings of what started as 5 companies, became 10, then 20, and now we're hitting over 30. And let me be clear, this isn't just like sloppy marketing. It's coordinated, it's intentional, and in some cases, it's straight up predatory. Some of these companies are even using fake review landing pages and building entire shell platforms that look like an independent recommendation company, but are essentially just pipelines feeding leads to whoever's going to pay the most for you. They don't care who you get sent to, they just care that they can sell you. And the kicker, when you submit your info, it does not stop there. You get sold, and then sometimes to dozens of third parties, and you become the lead that you're getting phone call after phone call from people you've never heard of, pitching products that you've never even asked for. So, my big thing is always this: if you see a problem, you can either bitch about it or you can do something about it. And I decided to, well, I guess essentially do both. So, as any responsible adult, I looked to find the people that enforce these rules to report these companies to. Because I figure if I have the screen recordings of the videos, the screenshots of the terms and conditions showing the fake company, the LLC that they're selling them to, that maybe somebody would listen and I'd make it really easy for them to, Jesus, like just send a letter to them, let them know they're doing something wrong. At least that's what I had hoped for. I went to first a couple state attorney general's office and filled out reports, gave them a link to my Google Drive of over 30 companies really playing fast and loose with these disclosures. And guess what? I got a auto reply, thank you, we'll be in touch. And that was it. So then I went to the FTC, considering it's the FTC rule from last year that you can't use fake testimonials, fake reviews. You need disclosures, and filled out complaints there. And I got my, again, automated reply, thank you, and heard crickets. So I thought, okay, why don't I just go to the place where I'm seeing all these ads? So I went to someone high up at TikTok. I randomly found their name on LinkedIn and decided to just message them and say, hey, buddy, you got a big problem and you should probably know about this. And because like I already have horrible views on TikTok because I constantly report bad advertisements, I don't know what it is, but so I might as well dig my hole deeper. So here's what I said to this TikTok person. I said, hey, I've been tracking a handful of fintech companies and lead gen who are misleading consumers with fake testimonials and no disclosures. Even when I report them, their ads are still being pushed through. And this person said, thanks, Wendy. Feel free to send me some examples. I appreciate you calling these out. And so I sent him my whole folder and even explained, here's what's wrong. And they replied, hey, I pulled a random video from here. Can you tell me what's wrong? And so I had to go and tell this person high up at TikTok that these are fake testimonials. There are no disclosures. And hey, here's the FTC announcement from last year talking about how this is illegal. And his response was, got it. Thanks. And I even tried to play nice. I said, I'm not saying this is totally your fault. I understand you can't monitor every ad that's being promoted on your platform, even though you make a ton of money off of it. But you really should notice this and you need to do something about it. And their response was, I totally appreciate you bringing it to my attention. And we want to create a trustworthy ad and content experience as much as possible for our users. And that is the last I heard from that person. And that was March 28th. Today is May 8th. So after that, and getting a bunch of canned responses, I then started to call some attorney generals, talked to one on the phone, and majority of their responses was, hey, thanks, but we need a victim. And that's probably the most frustrating part about consumer advocacy is when you see a big problem, you see what's going to come from it, but the reaction and response and protection from government agencies normally doesn't happen until there's a bunch of victims. So instead of doing preventative maintenance, we're just waiting till everything goes to shit, and then maybe they'll step in. And so after all that hard work, oh yeah, I did one more thing. And then there was one company who sells home equity agreement ads, and they had a woman make a home equity agreement ad for two separate companies, the exact same script, the exact same neighbor that also took out conveniently a home equity agreement, exact same cat, everything, absolutely everything for two separate companies. So I went on Twitter and tagged the two companies that the referral lead went to because I clicked and submitted my info. And guess what? Suddenly, that one lead generation group is now putting actor portrayal very big on all of their ads. But why does it have to get to that point for me to stick my neck out and call companies out who likely have more money than I do to actually have change happen? And I don't know if this was from TikTok or from me constantly reporting, but the three companies that used total AI avatars and bullshit disclaimers, I no longer see. I can't say the same for the other 27, but, progress, I guess. So to recap, no matter whose door we beat down, no matter who we talk to, it's like public shame is the only way to get some of these companies to knock it off. The rest are still doing it and still running ads to this day, claiming they made more money in their pocket from selling to a cash buyer, which we know is not true, especially when that cash buyer is a wholesaler who's going to turn around and try to find someone else to pay more money for your property and pocket the difference. So here's why you need to care about this, because this is your money and your data, your home, your car insurance, whatever it is they're selling. This is yours. These ads aren't selling you sneakers or teeth whiteners, which Lord knows must make TikTok a ton of money because so many people on TikTok can get paid for selling the stupidest shit. It's gross. I feel like it ruined TikTok, but that's probably a whole separate conversation. These ads are selling you major financial decisions that could cost you tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars. That ad that somebody had for a home equity agreement that conveniently ran the exact same ad for two different companies could have baited someone into a home equity agreement in which they might claim to not have interest or monthly payments. But in 10 years, that equity share agreement doubles. Even if your property value goes down, they're still going to take more of the equity than they originally agreed to when you took out this agreement. And if you don't want to sell your home, you're screwed because you need to pay all of that back in 10 years. So in 10 years, you have to sell your home or take out a loan to pay off the thing that you took out in which the ad told you it wasn't a loan. And surprise, surprise, now you're screwed. That guy in the flannel shirt we talked about who sold his money for way more than he ever thought he could, guess what? That went through a wholesaler lead generation website whose sole purpose is to lowball you as much as possible, turn around and find someone who will take over that contract for more money and then pocket the difference. Oh, and my favorite, the one ad who had 4 or 5 different women saying how their husband used to be the highest car salesman insurance person in the US, and they're exposing blah, blah, blah. And now they pay $67 a month for their Mercedes. I don't remember the exact amount. So like this dude either has 5 wives who all drive Mercedes or they're lying. But what does happen when you put your information through that website, you get bombarded and solicited out the wazoo by all kinds of random ass insurance people that you didn't know were going to start calling you. And the funny thing is, when we read some of the comments and the reviews, most of these people that use that were getting offers for higher insurance than they're already paying for right now. One of my favorite ones was this account on TikTok who was putting out all sorts of mortgage advice and encouraging you to go to this website that was a mortgage shopper comparison website that would help you find the best rate. And only, and if only, you scrolled all the way down to the bottom in the tiny print disclaimers, would you see that a certain mortgage company is recommended the most through this website because they're JD Power rated, associated, blah, blah, blah. And then the next line down, you find out that this mortgage comparison website shopper is also owned by that same company who ends up getting most of the leads. Had you not scrolled down to the very, very bottom, you would have never known that this giant mortgage company owns this mortgage comparison free website. So you're getting pushed into contracts that you have no idea how bad they actually are for you. You're pushed into salespeople you had no idea were actually going to call you or have any idea if what they're offering you is even of a greater value and discount than what you have. And then you're being funneled to companies based on who's going to pay the most money for your data, not what's best for you. These aren't just bad ads. They're literally pipelines into life-altering decisions. And the worst part is that many consumers never even know they're being manipulated. They think they're making a smart, empowered choice when in reality, they're just being sold. Sold by a smiling face, sold by a freaking AI avatar, or sold by someone who's never even disclosed that they're being paid to pretend that they were this amazing client. So let's talk about this regulatory black hole for a second. The FTC has rules. They had a rule that came out last year that was supposed to be enforced. Fake testimonials are a no-no. Disclaimers are a yes, yes. Fake reviews are a no-no. It's very clear that you need to require disclosure of paid endorsements. You cannot have misleading or deceptive claims. And they warn companies against burying these disclaimers and hiding this stuff and not disclosing it. But guess what? While there may be rules, the enforcement is at the bare minimum. And unless a company gets too loud, too big, or too brazen, or quite frankly, has enough consumers bitching about them online, nothing happens. The platforms like TikTok, Instagram, they're making so much money off of these ads. They have no real incentive to shut it down unless some lawsuit forces their hand. And they'll probably even that point claim that they have disclosures in place that companies need to disclaim XYZ, but how can they keep track of everybody? Who knows? I'm sure there's some sort of legal loophole that these giant ass companies and their giant legal team will be able to figure out. In those companies, especially the slimy ones running these ads, they'll just close their LLC and move on and start a new one and rinse and repeat. And you, the consumer who ends up being the victim, is left holding the bag, maybe some 30-year, 10-year loan obligation, higher car insurance, or just being really annoyed that you're going to get phone calls for the next week over and over and over again. Sometimes even for a year. Randomly, you're going to get phone calls of people trying to sell you shit. But you didn't know that because you thought you were going through a company. So how do you protect yourself from this? I'll be real with you. We are entering the buyer beware phase. That unless there are enough victims, likely nothing is going to happen. So what can you do? A, you need to accept the truth that you are your own watchdog right now. And quite frankly, if you have elderly parents or someone that's younger and naive, you're going to have to be their watchdog too. Everything you watch and see from an ad, if it feels too perfect, accept that it's probably bullshit. My favorite thing to do, not favorite, God, that sounds awful. I need to get a life. One of the things I do when I see these ads is I scroll all the way down after I click on the ad and go all the way down to the terms and conditions. And that's where you're going to find out who actually owns this company. And some of these companies are actually like just shell companies owned by some big ass corporations. Other ones, like one of them who claims to give you the most cash for your home, you actually figure out that this company is actually a wholesaler company. And so all of the leads that you think you're getting for a cash offer that's going to be like at market value and save you money is actually going to a wholesaler whose main goal is to lowball you as much as possible and then find someone to give them more money for that lowball offer that they just offered to you. Search for the company complaints. Ask us. Shit, ask me. Hey, actually, if you see an awful ad, please send it to me on TikTok. Message me, send it to me, however you can, and I will add it to our folder. But so anyway, so let's go back to this. Search for the company. Look for complaints. Look for reviews. Check for a physical address because a lot of times there is not one. and look for disclosures. And that terms and conditions, what you're also probably going to see for a lot of these companies, is a disclosure telling you that they have no liability for anyone that they refer you to and that they might accept money for referrals and that they actually don't sell you anything and it's just a marketing platform. It sure doesn't look like that, but it is. And don't give your info to website without clear terms, policies, and ownerships. I hate to sound skeptical and I hate to say this, but everything you watch, you should watch it with skepticism at this point, especially on social media ads. And if you're unsure again, come to us. We will be happy to figure out where the bullshit is in the ad. And we will add it to our folder that no one seems to give a shit about or do anything with. And as frustrating, as angry and irritable as I might seem, which I really need to make a happy episode next time. I'll find something fun to talk about. I'm not going to stop because as exhausting as this is, and as after I've hit wall after wall to get any kind of regulator to take these scams seriously, I'm not stopping. Because every time I talk to a consumer who almost signed something sketchy but paused, or every time someone messaged me saying, look at this ad, I can't believe people fall for this. Or, hey, thanks for letting me know about this. I had no idea. I'm going to tell my clients it's worth it. The system is slow as hell. I think it might even be asleep at this point. I have no idea. And I don't get the impression that it's going to get any better over the next couple of years with how some regulatory agencies are being chopped at the knees. But while they're getting chopped, we're not. We're going to continue to educate you and build something smarter and better for you because consumers need protection. So until the next episode, which I promise I will make something happier. Boy, this industry makes me swear and get cranky. But until the next episode of something that will hopefully be much happier, be skeptical, ask questions, and read past the pitch. And when you're in doubt, just assume that smiling person on your screen is probably reading a script and getting paid to do so because too often they are. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.
Have a story or a question you want to share? Hit us up at therealestatereplay.com.